Hello there, and welcome back to the fourth video in the Middle Cry of Freedom map editor tutorials. In this tutorial we're going to talk about the scene props and some of their features, how to plant scene props, how to move them around, and how to save your map, how to delete scene props, and everything that's, well, almost everything that's related to scene props. Some of the more advanced stuff we're gonna put into their own video because it's probably worth putting it in its own video. So once again, to get started, Ctrl+E, and it will immediately put you into the Scene Props tab. So just click in there if you are not, like say if you're already in the Paint Terrain tools, just click into the Scene Props tab. And this is where most of these buttons will come in useful. And instead of going through all of them all at once, I'm gonna explain them as we go. So as you can see, we currently have a completely empty map. There's just some terrain, we painted our terrain, we sculpted it. There's grass, but there's no scene props. And to spawn a scene prop, simply select one of these categories here. So we have all kinds of categories like doors, buildings, walls, etc, etc. So there's a lot of stuff. And to spawn one, select one out of this list. For example, I'm just gonna select this A10 closed, and then press spacebar to activate your spawn thing. If you press spacebar again, it's gonna disappear. You're not spawning anything. If you press spacebar again, you have the prop selected. So you can now move your mouse around and it will update the position. You can, of course, select another tent or a barn or anything else, and we'll just keep doing this. Again, press spacebar, it's not here. And you'll notice that if I press spacebar, there will be these three arrows, and these three arrows will show you the local axis of the object. And red, I believe, is the x-axis, green is the y-axis, and blue is the z-axis. And this will be quite handy in a minute when I show you how to rotate your prop. So if you have a prop selected and you want to spawn it, press the left mouse button. You'll see it will be spawned and it will automatically have it selected. It will be green if it's selected, and if you press spacebar again and again, it will unselect it and it will no longer be green. You can select it by just clicking on it or by clicking on it in this list. This is the list of spawn props. This is the list of possible props you can spawn. There's all kinds of sorting things. You can search for it, you can sort this list, you can reverse it. It's all kinds of very neat and useful features that we didn't have available in, for example, Mountain Blade Warband. Alright, so let's select the tent. And let's say I want to move it from over here to over here. To do that, I'm holding down G and then I'm moving my mouse. And you'll see it will, I'm moving the mouse up, now I'm moving the mouse down. You'll notice that it will update it depending on where you move your mouse to. So this is how you can move your object around on the X and the Z axis, but not on the Y. If you want to move your object on the Y-axis, i.e. up and down, you hold T, and then it will update that, and you can move your object up and down as you wish. Next up, if you want to rotate your object, we have three buttons, that's Y, X, and Z, and obviously the Y button is for the Y axis, X is for rotating around the X axis, and Z for around the Z-axis, and that's where these arrows will come in really useful. So to rotate it around the Y-axis, we're just going to hold Y again and move our mouse. You'll see that it will rotate freely. Again, X-axis, it's the red one, and Z is the blue one. You can reset your rotation very easily by just going into here. So you can see, these are the rotations of your prop. If you select it, it will update them. So for example, if I place another prop over here, we'll have a different rotation and position then this prop. We'll notice that it updates. So if I, for example, like accidentally messed up a rotation of this and I want to reset it, and yeah, I could do it this way, right? Like I could just do this, but it's not going to be exact. So I might as well just go in here and change my rotation. Of course, you can also just go in here and say, yeah, I want 90 degrees rotated on the y-axis. Ta-da! It's rotated 90 degrees on the y-axis. You can do the same with the position and the scale. Now, the scale, you can also press and hold B and then move your mouse, and you can evenly scale the prop on all axes. Obviously, sometimes you might want to scale a prop just on one axis, and for that we don't have a button at the moment, so you're just going to have to go in here and change it. So for example, if you want the 10 to just be scaled along the x-axis, and you want a scale of 2, just type in 2, and you see it will only be scaled on one axis. And if I now want it evenly scaled, I just change it, and now I have a 10 that's 2 times the normal size. If I want to delete a prop, very simple, I just select it, press delete, and it will be deleted. Now, let's say, oh yeah, it will keep the last set rotation and scale when you spawn the next prop. So for example, this was 222 and 09090, 090, sorry. It will keep this, just in case you might want to place, for example, a fence line, and you don't have to rotate the fence every time and every time and every time you place a new fence. So it's quite useful. If you just want to redo it, you want it by default, just set it to 111, because most props start with a 111 rotation scale and 00 rotation. Now let's go to fences. Let's just show you this. So I'm gonna select the fence. Let's say, yeah, this one is nice. It's not really a fence, but it's more like a railing. Doesn't matter. Sometimes props will appear blue, as you see in this one. Just spawn them in and they'll get their texture. So if you want to spawn a fence line real fast, it's actually quite easy. You don't have to do this every time. What you can do instead is just you spawn a prop, and then you press Control when you and press left mouse button at the same time. You'll see you can just really quickly spawn more and more and more props. So you can make a fence line really in no time. And as you can see, if you then press spacebar again, it will automatically select all the fences you've placed down in your last placing frenzy. So I'll have all of them selected at the same time. Now I'm going to unselect them. Of course, I can do the same. I can select each fence separately, but I can also hold Control to select several at once. In addition to that, you can also use the drag box. So just press and hold left mouse button and drag it across the screen, and you can select several prefabs all at once. Same goes for in this list. Control, and if you double click on a prop, it will center on it. So that's, you know, that way you can search something in your list and then very easily just go to it, make your camera move to it. If you have a prop selected and you scroll down and you, sorry, I did selected it, and you scroll down and you press Shift and left mouse button, you will select all the props in between this prop you have selected and the last prop you have selected. So in this case, it was all the props but for the last one. So that's a very useful feature as well. Then, another extremely useful feature, especially for fences. I'm gonna show you this with, let's see. Yeah, this one is good. Show you with this one, along this over here, this hill, is the snap to terrain feature. So I'll see on the bottom down here, there's a button called snap to terrain, and if you click it, your prop will automatically update to the terrain position. So you don't have to cumbrously like change the rotation of every single prop if you have a hilly map. So if you want to just place a fence line real quick now, it's again left mouse button. Left mouse button and control, and you can place a fence line real fast this way. And then once it goes over here, snap to terrain. Now of course it does this on all axes, so as you can see here, it leans a bit to here to the right, so in that case you're just gonna have to rotate this manually, but it will already save you so much time just, you know, adjusting it to one axis or two axes. So yeah, that's a really useful feature. You currently don't have snap to object working, but we'll get that working in the future. Then next up, what I'm going to show you is the random settings. These are really useful, especially with stuff like trees, for example. We're just going to go and select a tree, for example, this peach tree. Right, so I can just place them down, right, and I want to make a peach orchard. So I'm placing a whole bunch of peach trees, and now I'm noticing they're all the exact same size. They all rotated the exact same way, and it obviously looks really stupid. So I'm going through and I'm rotating them all and like changing the scale manually. It's really annoying, takes really long to do. So instead of doing that, I might just go to the random settings, and then this window will pop up. And here you can, for example, say I want a random rotation every time I spawn a prop, and I want to use a random scale, and then I'm going to define a scale range from, let's just keep it this way because it's going to be very easy to see what it does. So now every time I spawn a prop, it's going to have a different scale, randomly chosen, and yeah, like I said, it's going to be very, very obvious. And it's also going to have a random rotation, which is probably easier to see if I just scale to something reasonable. Well, let's just untick the scale thing entirely. So now it's just random rotation. You'll notice each tree is rotated slightly differently. So this one is 123, 193, 308, 305. So that's a really neat feature, and you can of course do this on all axes, and in this case it doesn't make much sense because trees don't grow that way, but for example for rocks that's really useful. In addition, you can also untick the use same random for all three axes thing, and now it will give you 3 different scale sizes for each axis. And you can now select which axis you want to scale in your random scale. So in this case, for example, I only want to scale it along the y-axis. I need to reset my scale rotation real quick. There we go. And now you'll see it will randomly choose a scale between 0.1 and 3 on the y-axis only. That's why the tree looks so weird, because it's only scaling it along the y-axis. So that's another thing that might be really useful for some props, for some others not so much. Generally, probably this is going to be what you're going to be using most of the time. You know, a minimum scale of 1 something to 1.2, or maybe 0.9, and a random rotation of on y-axis only. And yeah, it's gonna making forests and rocks and, you know, just in general objects that you place a lot over and over and over again, and that sort of require random rotation and scale. It's gonna make it really easy to do. So again, to close it, just untick all these boxes and close your random settings button. So now it's always the same. I'm gonna reset my scale. Yeah, let's just show how it sorts. Simply you could search for peach. We'll put all the peaches on the very top. So, in general sorting, probably very straightforward to use. Now, I haven't even shown you yet how to save your map. So what I'm going to show you now, and it's important that I do this with the SceneProps because there'll be something I'll have to show. I can't show you right now, but I'll be able to show you once I've saved. If you want to save your map, press CTRL E again, or press this X button. What that will do is, we'll open this window. In this case I press CTRL E. And it will ask you if you don't want to save and exit the editor. If you want to just save but keep the editor open, or if you want to save and exit. In this case, for example, I'm going to just save. And now it's saved my scene. And you'll see that this color here updated. It was cyan a minute ago, and now it's all magenta. And the reason for that is that these props are now saved in the scene, which means they're already in the scene before I saved. So if I close the editor, I save and exit, I'll stay here, even though I'm not in the editor right now. If I go back into the editor, they're magenta, right? Any new props I spawn in this session will be cyan, so they'll be marked this way. Any new props you spawn and you press delete, they'll immediately delete. But any props that you had previously in the scene and you press delete, you'll see they'll get like a red hue. And this gives you the chance to, and they'll mark red over here. This gives you the chance to press don't save and exit, and your prop will not be deleted. Will also give you the chance to, let's say I'm deleting this one and this one, right? So they're red, but I can still select them. And if I press delete again, they're no longer deleted. So you'll see there's no red trees in this list. And that's a really useful feature, I think. So you can undo your deletes and you cannot save them if you wish to. And yeah, it will tell you which props you just recently spawned in and which props have already been in the map previously. I think that's all the important features for the SceneProps for now. We're gonna go through all the variation ID stuff, the replace tool, and the prop grouping in another video. But for now, that should be it.